Welcome to Into the Night. I'm Nari, your guide on today's excursion down a twisted path. Be careful not to get lost. Be it dark or light, it's easy to lose your way. Are you ready? Then let's begin. This episode deals with themes of supernatural horror and suicide. Listener discretion is advised. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Milwaukee, Wisconsin languished under a brutal cold snap, not uncommon for the Midwest in wintertime. Icicles hung from rooftops, and mounds of gray snow piled on the sides of streets while busy commuters wound their way through the city and on the freeways. Shoppers braved the brutal sub-zero weather to buy necessities, and children huddled against each other at bus stops, since school districts in Wisconsin seldom believed in canceling school. Towering above the downtown area were numerous skyscrapers filled with financial planners, architects, corporate executives, city government offices, and more than one news outlet. The movers and shakers of the Milwaukee economy had made their way to their offices and were already at work building dreams and orchestrating hostile takeovers. In other words, it was an average Tuesday. A haze of pollution hung in the air, and no refreshing breezes blew on this frigid morning to offer relief. A drab aura surrounded the day, and it wouldn't be far-fetched to say a cloak hung over the city. In one of those massive skyscrapers, the quiet ticking of the clock on the wall numbed Jason Phelps into a near-hypnotic state. Stacks of papers covered his busy newsroom desk, and nothing but caffeine, adrenaline, and frankly fear kept him awake. How many days had he gone without sleep? He'd forgotten. His muddled mind tried to make sense of what he'd uncovered in recent weeks. Where had it begun?
It began in my bathroom mirror.
What a crazy thought that was. Jason focused on the ticking clock as he tried desperately to drown out the sounds ringing through his skull. Jason was right, in a sense. It began for him in his bathroom mirror. One morning, as he shaved, a dizzying rush took over his body. He fought it, but in that moment, he knew. He knew as certainly as if he'd witnessed it on his television station's nightly news, or had been an eyewitness at some spectacular event of history. No one would ever believe him, but a world had opened up to him that others were blinded to, and more than anything, he wished he could put the proverbial genie back into its bottle.
It's my job to tell the world about breaking news. What an overused term. We've beaten that one into the ground. I'd be hounded out of my career if I reported something like this.
His concerns weren't unfounded. He tried to talk to his mother, but she suggested that he see a psychiatrist.
Yes, a psychiatrist will make this all better.
For the first time in days, Jason Phelps let out a chuckle. Blaring sirens broke Jason from his trance. 2 fire trucks sped past on the street below, forcing their way to an inferno. Somewhere, the bitter cold was at war with the searing heat as some structure burned in a fury. What was that he'd read in Dante's Inferno years before as a college sophomore? According to Dante, hell was a frozen wasteland, not the burning pit of damnation we envision it as. With no offense meant to the Italian great, Jason Phelps had to agree with the popular opinion. Those flames burning in the distance were real representations of the hell he learned about as a young boy in his Baptist grandfather's church so many years ago. Remembering those sermons, he could smell the brimstone. No, the Arctic blast that assaulted every Milwaukee resident this morning was a stark contrast to hell. Suddenly, the clamor of activity around him brought him to his senses. Just like every other morning at Channel 10 News, the newsroom was abuzz with activity. Phones rang, and people shouted information to each other. For the first time that morning, Jason was aware of his surroundings in a real way.
Hey, Dreamer. I said, do you have the name of the victim in the shooting? Or do I need to call Channel 3 for that information?
Ed Tinsley stood impatiently over Jason. Not a small man by any means, Ed was a formidable figure.
Yeah, just a sec.
Jason flipped through his notebook.
You know, you haven't been yourself lately. Normally, you'd know it off the top of your head. Are you having relationship problems or something? You better come alive soon, Jace. The bosses won't like you daydreaming like that.
Jason shook his head.
No, they won't like a lot of things. Here it is. His name was Michael D'Angelo. He'd just moved to the city a month ago. No suspects had been caught. No leads on the killing either. Thanks, bub.
Ed slapped him on the shoulder with the papers he held in his hand before racing across the newsroom to talk with Claire Henson, the morning anchor. Her auburn hair was perfectly coiffed, and she wore one of those dresses that fit just right.
If I was going to have any relationship issues, I wish it was with her. So much for that now.
It took only a moment for Jason to be pulled back into his own thoughts, blocking out the bustle of the newsroom.
My bathroom mirror. Did it really have something to do with this? Or was I just the unlucky son of a bitch who would have seen this anyway?
Jason's mind wandered back to the first morning he saw it in the mirror. The spinning, the flames, the faces. The faces scared him the most. Even though his grandfather preached 1,000 sermons about the threat of hell, part of Jason always thought it might be some sort of fairy tale. Heaven and hell were stories parents told their children to make them behave. Don't fight with your sister or Santa won't bring you any presents.
Don't fight with your sister or God will send you to hell.
Jason, however, knew it was no fairy tale. His mirror didn't lie. The first time he saw the visions in it, he thought he was hallucinating. Maybe the pharmacist had mixed up his blood pressure medicine with some sort of psychotropic drug. However, the other times he stared into his mirror, he not only saw glimpses into hell, but he smelled the brimstone and heard the voices.
We are coming, Jason Phelps. You can see us, but you are powerless to stop us. Your mirror is our portal, and there is nothing you can do now.
The demon's eyes glowed red, and the hatred exhaled in his putrid breath singed the hair of Jason's beard. In subsequent days, he watched, helplessly, as demons flowed out of hell through his mirror and into the world around him. Knowing his impotence against them, the demons laughed as they shared visions with Jason of the impending end to the earth. Jason knew that day was today. He knew. They'd told him. Quietly, without drawing attention from his coworkers, Jason stepped into his boss's office. He'd always been jealous of Ted Reagan's office space. A sliding glass door opened to a small balcony that looked out across the city. What Jason would have given to have a view like that. For a few moments, he had it all to himself. His breathing slowed as he calmed himself. He placed his jacket onto the back of Ted's chair and loosened his tie. He slipped his patent leather shoes off, leaving them just inside the glass door which he stepped through. It was cold, yes, but strangely peaceful. He could smell the smoke. It wasn't the fire from earlier. This smoke came from much farther away, and the sulfuric taste of brimstone filled his nostrils and mouth.
It has begun.
Knowing that neither good nor bad mattered now, Jason stepped to the edge of the balcony. He marveled at the gray haze that enveloped his city. It wasn't typical pollution. It had escaped from the pits of hell itself. Jason now considered himself lucky because he could end his misery before the coming onslaught. Taking one last breath, he held it as he plummeted to the pavement below. A deep rumble followed by a howling roar escaped from the cracked sidewalk where he made impact. A demon hovered for a moment above Jason's body, then flew to the balcony and enjoyed the view. Thank you for joining me for Into the Night, an anthology series written by Caroline Giammanco and narrated by Nari. You can now listen to all new episodes of Into the Night on your favorite podcast directory. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and please share with anyone you think would like to join us on our next excursion. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review. It really does help. Feel free to reach out to us on Twitter at IntoTheNightPod or by email at itnanthology@gmail.com. I'll see you in 2 weeks. And remember, whether in the shadows or in the daylight, all twisted paths take you into the night.